Among the vines. Malik Thompson never imagined peace could be this quiet. At 38, he had spent most of his adult life working in logistics in Oakland, late nights, early mornings, and too much time explaining himself to people who saw his skin before his resume. The city had drained him, until one day he drained his bank account instead. Retirement funds, severance pay, and what little his late mother left him, and bought 5 acres of land 2 hours north. The farmhouse wasn't fancy. The land had been neglected, but to Malik it looked like freedom. That was 3 years ago. Now, most mornings started like this. Dew still clinging to the vineyard rows, bird song in the distance, and the subtle crunch of Malik's boots pressing through dry soil as he inspected his vines. He named each section after musicians: Coltrane, Nina, Hendrix, because he believed in rhythm, in flow, in stories woven into the grapes. And because silence, though beautiful, could be lonely. A battered German shepherd named Duke followed him loyally, tongue hanging out, eyes squinting into the morning sun. Malik squatted by the base of a vine and gently fingered a leaf yellowing too soon. "Too much heat this week," he muttered. Duke whined in agreement. "We'll water tonight, not now." His vineyard was called Ironroot Vines, after the hardy grape species that could survive drought and disease. Some people thought the name sounded defiant. Malik didn't argue. He stood, stretching his arms, and looked out toward the tree-line bordering his land. Just beyond it, over the hill, was Oak Crest Estates, a neighborhood of oversized homes, manicured lawns, and pastel mailboxes. The kind of place where people jogged with matching strollers and waved at passing cars without knowing who was inside. Malik's land didn't fall under Oak Crest. He had confirmed that 10 times over before buying the property. His land had no HOA, no monthly dues, no uniform grass height, no architectural review board to veto his choice of barn paint. Still, in the back of his mind, he always felt watched. It started subtly. One day, he was unloading a shipment of compost when a silver SUV slowed in front of his driveway. The woman inside stared at him for a solid 10 seconds before driving off. A week later, 2 men in matching polos stood near the tree line, hiking, but their GPS watches seemed pointed at his rows rather than the trail. He shrugged it off. Rural curiosity, maybe. Or people not used to someone like him, black, solitary, and running a vineyard, so close to their bubble. But then came the first envelope. Malik found it taped to his gatepost one morning, flapping in the breeze like some suburban shroud. The paper was thick, formal, and bore a red and gold header. Oak Crest Homeowners Association. Compliance notice. Violation. Overgrown vegetation visible from the road. Correction deadline. 7 days. He blinked at it, then laughed. He wasn't part of their HOA. Still, just to be sure, he dug out his deed. As expected, his property was zoned agricultural residential, with no HOA covenant on record. He scanned the letter, scribbled, "Not a member." Wrong property, in black Sharpie, and dropped it in a nearby community Dropbox. A week later, a second letter arrived. This one-sided unauthorized signage, his Ironroot Vines logo, hand-painted on a cedar plank nailed to his gate. The letter called it aesthetic pollution. Malik narrowed his eyes. "I don't belong to your damn club," he muttered, placing the second notice in a folder labeled petty crap. He tried to ignore it. Work needed him more. Grapes don't wait for neighbor drama. He spent his days tending the vines, recording content for his small YouTube channel, and shipping cases of his wine, mostly to customers in San Francisco and LA who loved the idea of a boutique vineyard with soul. But the tension grew. He began seeing unfamiliar cars parked along the dirt road near his boundary fence. A drone buzzed overhead once, pausing over his fermenting shed before zipping away. When Malik called the sheriff's department, the dispatcher told him it was likely just hobbyists. "It's open sky up there," she said. "Not much we can do unless they trespass." Even Duke had grown anxious. The dog barked more at night, pacing the property line. Malik added motion lights and cameras, partly for safety, partly for peace of mind. Still, every time he crossed paths with someone from Oak Crest, at the feed store, the farmer's market, they were civil, smiling even. But there was a tension behind their politeness. a studied distance. He'd grown up around it. People who praised his entrepreneurial spirit while eyeing his truck like it might leak oil. Once, at the co-op, a woman said, "It's so great to see someone like you here, doing something positive." Malik held her gaze and replied, "Someone like me?" She flinched, laughed nervously, and changed the subject. He didn't pursue it. He had vines to prune and wine to bottle. But the weight of it settled on him more each day. The unspoken rules, the invisible line between us and you. He had moved here to escape the noise, not to become a new target. Then, one evening, just as the sun dipped behind the ridge and painted the sky in burnt amber, Malik spotted something odd. His mailbox, a simple black metal post, now bore a sticker in the same red and gold HOA colors as the letters. It read, "Subject to community oversight." He peeled it off slowly, eyes narrowing. The wind rustled the vines behind him. Duke stood alert by his side. Malik took a deep breath and whispered, more to himself than anyone else, "This ain't over." The phantom rules begin. For a few days, things went quiet again. Malik leaned into the silence, hoping it was over. The sticker on his mailbox, the letters, the distant eyes. Maybe it had all been a misunderstanding, a rogue board member trying to throw weight around. He removed the cameras from the trees, took Duke off high alert, and poured himself into the vineyard's harvest prep. It was Syrah season. The grapes were dark and plump, ready to pick. Malik spent his mornings testing sugar levels, his afternoons pruning, and his evenings beneath string lights strung between trellises, sipping wine and listening to Coltrane echo through the rows. He reminded himself, "This is my land. I belong here." But that piece was a cracked glass, still whole, but spreading lines beneath the surface. 2 weeks after the mailbox incident, a letter arrived, not taped, not hand-delivered, but mailed, and this time with legalese. Certified Notice of Enforcement. Oak Crest Homeowners Association. Dear resident, this letter is to inform you that your property continues to violate community landscaping standards under HOA Ordinance 7.1.4, Vegetation Management. Noncompliance will result in further action, including municipal involvement if necessary. Sincerely, the Compliance Office. Oak Crest HOA. Malik stared at the notice in disbelief. Ordinance 7.1.4? Municipal involvement? He checked the parcel number. Correct. The address? Correct. But he wasn't in their district. They had no legal authority over him. He called the number on the letter. A chipper woman answered. Oak Crest HOA, how can I help? I'm not in your HOA, Malik said evenly. Your team has sent several notices now. I've ignored them because they're meaningless. But this one talks about involving the city. So, who exactly do I speak to about stopping this? The woman paused. He could hear typing. What's your address, sir? He gave it. There was a longer pause this time. That parcel is adjacent to Oak Crest. Adjacent, but not included. Check your overlay maps. More typing. Yes. You're right, technically. But some policies extend to the surrounding community to preserve visual uniformity. Malik blinked. That's not how law works. The voice changed tones, slightly defensive now. Well, our board voted to include the outer perimeter for enforcement purposes. I didn't vote for your board. There was silence. Let your board know, he added. If they send anything else to my address, my lawyer will handle it. He hung up. That same week, one of his wine shipments to a boutique shop in San Jose got rejected. The manager left a voicemail apologizing profusely. We just got a notice from a local zoning group saying you might be out of code for commercial distribution. I know it's probably nothing, but our legal team says we have to pause new deliveries. Zoning group? Malik had registered his small vineyard as a licensed agricultural business. The paperwork had been triple-checked when he first applied. He made some calls, but the trail was vague. No direct accusation. No official red flags. Just whispers, flags placed anonymously through community concern forms. That same night, his online storefront received 5 one-star reviews within 10 minutes. No comments. Just ratings. The IP addresses were private. The accounts were new. It's starting, Malik muttered. He printed the HOA letter, his business license, the review timestamps, and filed them in a binder labeled Pressure. At the weekly co-op exchange, the shift in energy was unmistakable. Vendors who once greeted him with nods now looked through him. A tall man in a golf hat, clearly oak crest, stood too close as Malik arranged bottles on a tasting table. "You use sulfites?" the man asked. "Nope. Natural fermentation," Malik replied. The man sniffed the air. "Smells strong. Could be a health violation." Malik raised an eyebrow. "It's grapes. In wine. They smell like wine." The man walked away without buying anything. Later, Malik overheard him talking to a county clerk about pollution from agricultural operations near residential lots. That weekend, Malik decided to show up at Oak Crest's monthly HOA board meeting, not as a member, but as a neighbor demanding answers. He wore jeans, a white linen shirt, and brought copies of his property deed and zoning permits. Duke waited in the truck outside. The meeting was held in a community hall that looked more like a country club lobby: polished floors, wall sconces, framed photos of the development's founders. The people inside, mostly white, a few older Asian couples, one black woman sitting alone in the back, fell quiet when he walked in. "I'd like to speak," Malik said evenly. One of the board members, a woman in a navy suit, looked up. "This meeting is for residents only. I live next door. You've sent 6 letters to my home, threatened enforcement, and possibly interfered with my business. I'm here to address that." Another man leaned forward. "We've simply extended aesthetic expectations to maintain the area's value. You benefit from that, too." Malik nodded. "That's not what your bylaws say. I brought the county maps and deed restrictions to clarify." He held them out. "The board didn't take them. We'll review and get back to you," the woman said curtly. On his way out, someone muttered "troublemaker" under their breath. He didn't see who. Malik sat on his porch that night, binder in his lap, Duke curled up at his feet. The string lights swayed in the breeze. He thought of his mother, who had taught him how to hold his ground without losing his soul. "There's power in knowing you're right," she used to say. "Just make sure you're ready when they pretend you're wrong." The drone came back that night, lower this time. Duke snarled, chasing it along the fence line. Malik didn't reach for a broom like before. He reached for his phone and hit record. He stared into the lens and spoke quietly. "They're trying to write me into rules I never agreed to. But this land doesn't answer to them. I don't answer to them. And if they want to fight, they're going to wish they stayed in their lane." The red light blinked as the drone zipped away. They sent the cops. The day started like any other, warm, golden, and dusted with the scent of ripening fruit. Malik rose with the sun, stretching his shoulders before heading out to walk the vine rows. Duke padded along beside him, tail swishing, sniffing at the wind. Birds called from the high branches, and somewhere in the distance, the hum of a tractor echoed faintly across the valley. He liked mornings like this, when the land was still whispering, not yet buzzing. Malik knelt at one vine and tested a grape between his fingers, rolling it gently. The sweetness was just right. A few more days, and the harvest would begin in earnest. He looked up, smiling faintly, until he noticed something off. A white SUV sat idling at the edge of the road, just outside the Vineyard gate. Not the usual HOA car. No logo. Government plates. Then the second vehicle arrived, black and white, Sheriff's Department. Malik straightened, his spine stiffening. Duke growled low. 2 uniformed deputies stepped out. One stayed near the vehicle, hand on her radio. The other approached the gate, scanning the vineyard as if it were unfamiliar terrain. Malik stepped toward him, calm but alert. "Morning," Malik called. "Can I help you?" The deputy raised a clipboard. "We received a community complaint about unregulated agricultural runoff and potential code violations." Malik frowned. "From who?" "Can't say. Just responding to the report. There's no runoff. And this is private land. Zoned agricultural residential. You're going to need more than a complaint to walk in here." The deputy shifted, eyes flicking toward the vines. "Do you have business registration paperwork?" "I do. Inside. We'll need to verify the shed for proper use. Is it commercial? Malik shook his head slowly. That's a fermenting room. You're not coming inside without a warrant. The second deputy joined them now, her posture tense, one hand near her belt. Sir, she said, we just need to confirm. No, ma'am, Malik interrupted, voice still low but firm. You're not walking into my business based on an anonymous report. You know how zoning works. You know what probable cause is. Unless you have a warrant or see active danger, this is trespassing. The first deputy glanced at his partner. They looked unsure, caught between pressure and procedure. And then one of them said it. We were told this property falls under the Oak Crest HOA jurisdiction. Malik exhaled sharply, almost a laugh. That's false. They've been harassing me for weeks, but I'm not in their HOA. You can check the county parcel maps. Right now. The moment tightened. The officers didn't back down, but they didn't push forward either. Duke barked, sharp and sudden. The second deputy flinched. Malik stood firm. Go back to your cars, he said, and check your data. Or call your supervisor. Because if you so much as step across that fence line, you'll be dealing with my attorney. There was a pause. Then, the first officer nodded, tight, curt. We'll follow up. They turned and walked back to the SUVs. A few minutes later, both vehicles rolled off down the road. Malik waited until they were out of sight before finally lowering his shoulders. He looked down at Duke. They sent the cops, man, he said, voice edged with disbelief. They really tried it. He spent the next 2 hours compiling everything, footage from his gate camera, audio from his porch mic, stills of the badge numbers, photos of the tire tracks where they parked. Then he called his attorney, Lauren Bay, and explained the situation in full. You sure they didn't step onto your land? She asked. Not this time. But they tried. Lauren sighed. They can't use HOA claims to send law enforcement without cause. That's abusive process. I want to file something, he said. Formal. I'm done being polite. I'll draft a cease and desist and request all records of HOA correspondence with law enforcement. If this was a coordinated act, we'll know. That night, Malik posted a video titled, They Tried to Send the Cops. Here's the truth. He didn't rant. He didn't curse. He walked his viewers through the morning with clear evidence. The body cam footage from his own cameras, the county parcel map, the mail trail, the audio logs. This isn't just about grapes, he said near the end. This is about a system that thinks it can invent rules when a black man owns land near a gated community. They tried to regulate me without jurisdiction. Then they tried to intimidate me with uniforms. But I'm not leaving. I'm not hiding. I'm rooted here. The video got 200,000 views in 48 hours. His inbox exploded with support. Small farmers, lawyers, activists, even retired HOA board members. Several of them had horror stories of weaponized community politics. A few offered donations. One offered to install floodlights and backup security. Malik didn't want charity. He wanted pressure. So he started pushing back. He submitted public records requests to the sheriff's department, filed a harassment complaint against Oak Crest's board, sent cease and desist notices via his attorney to every named member. The next time he went into town, people noticed. Some clapped him on the back, whispered, "Good for you." Others avoided his eyes. One man, a local council member, shook his hand and said, "You stirred something." A lot of folks have been afraid of that board for years. Malik smiled grimly. Afraid of letters and lawn rules? The man replied, afraid of the people behind them. Still, retaliation simmered. His mailbox was knocked over one night, flattened with a bat or bumper. He replaced it with steel-reinforced concrete. A week later, someone left a dead possum in his compost bin. He installed more cameras. But Malik refused to budge. He didn't flinch when the drone came back. He didn't blink when 2 more one-star reviews appeared. He knew this was the last gasp of a bully facing a mirror. He had something stronger than fear now: proof, momentum, and resolve. One night, as he stood on the porch watching the moonlight silver over the vines, Duke lay quietly at his feet. The wind carried the scent of sweet earth and lavender. Malik sipped a glass of his Syrah, thinking about legacy. About how land doesn't just grow crops, it grows identity. It grows roots. And his were getting deeper. They're not ready, he said softly, but they're gonna learn. Reckoning at the vines. The sun crept across the vineyard in slow, golden rays, the kind that made the grapes glow like small glass lanterns. Malik Thompson stood between the rows, fingertips brushing a low-hanging cluster of Syrah. The vines were healthy, strong, rooted, like him. It had been 4 weeks since the sheriff's visit. In that time, his life had shifted, not in the explosive way people expect when something goes viral, but like tectonic plates slowly grinding toward an earthquake. Everything had changed. And nothing had. He still woke up at dawn, still walked the rows with Duke, still talked to his plants as though they were old friends. But now his mailbox stood tall in reinforced concrete. His gate had motion sensors. And his wine shipments went out with tracking, legal oversight, and a lawyer on call. Because Malik wasn't just a farmer anymore. He was now a symbol. His cease and desist letters hit Oak Crest HOA like a thunderclap. Lauren, his attorney, forwarded him their replies. The board denied any wrongdoing, claimed the sheriff's visit was a miscommunication, and that they had no formal influence over law enforcement operations. But Malik had the receipts. Through his public records request, Lauren obtained copies of emails, cold, polite, and damning. The individual at 175 Eucalyptus Lane is out of compliance with HOA-adjacent visual standards. He operates a business without our oversight. We recommend flagging this property for safety concerns. A formal complaint is being drafted. Can we coordinate a welfare check with your department? Welfare check. That was how they framed it. A black man, alone, operating legally on his own land, framed as a threat by people who never once knocked on his door. Lauren smiled as she read them. We have everything we need for harassment and civil rights suit. News spread fast once Malik posted the documents. Local journalists picked up the story. Then regional outlets. Then, somehow, national attention followed. The headline hit home. HOA harasses black farmer with cops over land they don't own. Social media erupted. Hashtag #IronRootVines started trending. Supporters posted wine selfies with captions like, "Resist with a glass" and "Grow roots, not rules." Malik couldn't fulfill orders fast enough. He hired 2 part-time helpers from a neighboring farm and spent the evenings with Duke watching comments roll in, some angry, some tearful, many grateful. People who had lost homes to HOA fines. People who felt unseen in their own neighborhoods. People who knew exactly what it was to be quietly, strategically pushed out. But support wasn't universal. His fence was tagged one night with "Move." Another day, someone poured bleach into his compost pile. He didn't post about those incidents. He didn't want pity. He wanted results. And results came. The county commissioner's office launched a formal investigation into Oak Crest HOA's conduct. One board member, Paul Langston, the same man who had pushed for visual uniformity enforcement, resigned abruptly when it was revealed he had a brother in the sheriff's department. The sheriff's office issued a public apology. Not direct, not personal, but Malik saw the weight in the wording. "We regret any undue stress caused by our officers responding to incomplete information. We are reviewing procedures for third-party complaints and enforcement jurisdiction." Translation: We got caught being used. Lauren filed the civil suit the next day. Claims included harassment, defamation, tortious interference with business, and racial discrimination. The HOA offered a settlement quietly. 6 figures. No admission of wrongdoing. Malik refused. He didn't want their hush money. He wanted their behavior exposed. Their comfort disrupted the same way they had disrupted his. Lauren countered with public terms. A formal written apology. Financial damages for lost business. A recorded community statement acknowledging they never had authority over his land. HOA policy revisions and training on racial bias. The board blinked, but the pressure worked. By the end of the month, the agreement was signed. Malik hosted a gathering at Ironroot Vines the weekend after the settlement.
He didn't call it a party.
Just a community pour. No speeches. No banners. Just wine, jazz, and an open gate. People came. Some he recognized, neighbors who had once looked through him. Others were strangers who had followed his story. A few reporters lingered near the edges, respectful but alert. Even a few Oak Crest residents crossed the tree line. Some brought cheese. Others brought guilt. One woman, her voice shaking, approached Malik near the fermenting shed. "I never knew," she said, "what they were doing. I should have spoken up sooner." Malik nodded slowly. "It's not about knowing," he replied. "It's about deciding what to do, once you do." They clinked glasses. As the evening settled into soft laughter and low music, Malik walked along the vineyard edge with Duke. The lights above the vines swayed in the breeze. The air smelled of ripe fruit, honeysuckle, and clean earth. He looked at his land, the rows of vines, the shed he built with his own hands, the people who had come not to control it, but to witness it. He thought of his mother again. "Peace takes work," she used to say, "but it's worth fighting for." He sipped from his glass and whispered, "You were right." Just before midnight, as the last guests filtered out, a man in his 40s approached. Malik recognized him from the HOA meeting, the one who'd muttered troublemaker. The man didn't look smug anymore. He hesitated, then held out a business card. "I run a vineyard supply business," he said. "If you ever need tools or allies." Malik took the card. Didn't say much. Just nodded. Because he understood now, this wasn't just about a fence line. It wasn't even about race or rules or grapes. It was about who gets to belong. And who refuses to be erased. As Malik sat back on his porch, Duke curled beside him. He looked out over the vines glowing under the stars. Ironroot. That name meant more now. Not just the plant, but the principle. He wasn't going anywhere. And next time they tried, they'd know better.